Hi, it's Chris Moore with Senior Remodeling Experts. Welcome to Aging in Place is a Team Sport. It's a video series where we talk to different providers. We explore how families, professionals, and communities can come together to help older adults live safely, comfortably, and independently at home. I'm here to guide you, connect you with the right resources, and help make the rest of your life the best of your life. Welcome to Aging in Place is a Team Sport. I am honored to have today with me Jim Greatorex from the great state of Maine, and he is here to tell us about a technological breakthrough in the world of home assessments. But I'd like to start out first by asking you, Jim, if you could give us a brief summary of kind of your role in the team sport of aging in place and some of the different roles you've played in getting to this point in your career and some of the insights you've learned along the way.
I can do that, Chris. First of all, Chris is a great friend of mine. I've really enjoyed getting to know him in the last 5 or 6 years, and I really have a lot of respect, Chris, for how you run your business and the guy that you are. I am happy to be here with you today. So a little bit about me. I just kind of I wouldn't say semi-retired. I just kind of have changed roles again. I've been in what you'd call the acute home care market, which is really delivering services to people in a home care setting for the last 45 years. And so it's been a fun ride. I worked for a company for 8 years and then decided that it was time for me to break out on my own. I started a company in Portland, Maine called Black Bear Medical. Had that business for 27 years, took on 4 minority partners, and we were the leader in market share by a lot in what we call a complex rehab, which I really like to call a custom wheelchair world. And we did that really well. We had great people that worked for us that were really good at building these mobility solutions, custom mobility solutions for people who needed them in order to have mobility in their life. Our company also did a bunch of other things. We had a big retail showroom and process that we modeled, that people came from all over the country to see our showroom and learn how we do things, because retail in the home care space was very unique. And we also did some home modifications and home accessibility. And then in 2015, we decided that it was time to sell the company. The partners were let's just say that when you have great partners, it works really well, but there comes a time in the business cycle where you're going to hit your plateau, and it's either time to make a big change, bring in big money, or sell. And we decided it was time to sell. And it was a very big learning experience for me. And then I kind of became a free agent very quickly, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And one of the companies that I worked for that really I would consider staying in the industry for happened to call me, VGM. And they asked me, he said, "Hey, Jim, would you consider working for us?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll work for you, but I'm not moving to Iowa." Well, Chris, I just moved back to Maine from being in Iowa for about 8.5 years. So you can see that worked out. And I had a really great time. I was asked to, at first, go around the country and teach. EGM is a big membership service company. Overall, they have about 3,000 members in 5 different business industries in the acute home care market. One is home medical equipment providers who do oxygen and CPAP and hospital beds, manual wheelchairs, all that stuff. You got the custom wheelchair guys, which is US Rehab. They also had a division for women's boutiques called Essentially Women, and a orthotics and prosthetics division. And then I was asked to handle the home accessibility division. And so I really jumped into that and learned a lot about this industry. And what was really neat about it is that it was really almost in its very startup as an industry when I first started. And in 8 years, with help of VGM and a lot of great companies who wanted to engage and grow the industry, it's really taken off and has got a great future ahead of it. And it's professionalizing and it's getting recognized as a service entity in the market, which is cool. Decided to retire. My wife and I have now 3 grandkids back in Maine. We have in-laws in Florida. And we really wanted to be close to family again. And so it was best for me to step aside. I've done some consulting for VGM, but also started to do some consulting for other companies. One of them, which is DwellSafe. And I am so excited about DwellSafe just because I find it to be a revolutionary technology that can connect the medical community to the home access industry. And before I get into that real deep, one thing that I think we both would agree is that when you look at contractors per se, and for the most part, I'm not necessarily talking about you, Chris, but when you look at contractors and the medical community, it's not chocolate and peanut butter. We're 2 different worlds that speak 2 different languages. And so it's going to be kind of fun. What this platform can do is help each other understand the great professional services that they bring to the same client that they're serving. And I think that's why I'm excited about it and feel like it actually has the opportunity to take the home access industry to be recognized as a link in the home care spectrum and as valued service, professional service that will contribute to the success of a successful home care experience. So there you go.
That's awesome. And, the assessment, the whole idea of the assessment has always been something that I thought was important and valuable, and I have looked at a bunch of different assessment tools because, as most of you know, I started out as a framing contractor. We were framing big houses. I started my business in '01 up until through '06, '07. People were building these great big giant cut up houses with movie theaters in the basement and round turrets and curved staircases. And then one day in '08, all of that came to a screeching halt as I was looking for, another way to make a living. My mom and dad had been living in Arizona. My mom had a stroke and they moved back to Virginia to get some help with family. And I built her a ramp and put up some grab bars and put up some swinkler hinges and did some things. And I thought, wow, there's probably a lot of people that need these services. And I started to educate myself and learn some different things about aging in place. And I got really excited. Wow, there's a lot of people that need this. And then when I went out into the marketplace, I saw so many people who did need it, but didn't want to admit they needed it. They didn't want to acknowledge that, maybe their functionality might be decreasing. Maybe they might not get around as well as they used to. They'd rather, bury their head in the sand and just pretend that, everything's hunky dory. Well, the idea of an assessment where we could come in and we could, bring a professional, maybe get the services of an occupational therapist or some other healthcare professional that had the medical point of view behind their opinion, and go in and say, okay, well, here's our professional report about what things we recommend you do to your existing home, or this is what all needs to be done to your existing home. You might want to consider selling this home and looking for another home that has the following features, A, B, C, and D. And what I found was that there wasn't a lot of demand in the market for that assessment. People didn't value that professional opinion the way they value a home inspection. People, when they're buying a home, they think nothing of paying hundreds of dollars to a home inspector who may or may not know what they're talking about to come in and give them a home inspection report saying that, here's the structural and the electrical, plumbing, and so on and so forth, condition of your home before you buy it. So I've kind of struggled with this idea in the marketplace that an accessibility assessment was not particularly valued by many of the consumers that would benefit from it. And so every time a different assessment tool or a different model for doing this assessment comes along, I'm always very interested to learn what it has, what it doesn't have. And then, so when I heard about DwellSafe has an aspect of the assessment that, as far as I know, nobody else has. And what is that aspect, Jim, that sets it apart from all the other assessment tools that are out there?
Chris, what you've just said about how you got involved in this industry and what has happened with people not really being open to assessments is I've had a national view of that for the last 8 years. And it definitely is, that's something that I hear repeated over and over and over again. We've seen many companies that have come to the marketplace and spent a lot of money trying to sell the home assessment direct to consumer so that they can be the ones to go in and assess the home and then be able to in turn take that and connect people to the resource that will give them the result that they need for that successful home care experience. It's been on deaf ears. Nobody wants to have it happen. So what I believe is the best way to make this happen is that it should be the medical community who takes it upon themselves to educate people about the risks in their home and the risks that the individual has as far as fall risk. And that's what this tool does. It is designed so that it can be used by really anyone. And what a person does is they put in their medical conditions, their diagnosis. If they have an injury, if they have a mobility deficit, they list those in that piece and their medications along with any mobility devices they may be using. And then a person is able to take your phone, and with this platform, it's software. It will guide you through the going through the entrance and all the rooms in the house a person would utilize, and it then goes into to the DwellSafe system where AI gets involved. And what they've done is they've put in over 500 medical research documents and all kinds of studies that show how different medications act with different diagnoses and all of that. And it basically comes out with a fall risk for the people in the home so that they understand that what their mobility status truly is clinically with documented proof. All right. And then in turn, the scan, they've also put in some AI and studies on universal design, all the types of mobility solutions that are out there for like stair lifts and all ramps and all that type of thing. And they will be able to show the folks where the highest risk is in their house in each room. So if somebody is looking to invest in making their home safer, they can understand where the biggest risks are and make the investments there first, or and really mitigate the fall risk. And what this software will do is, first of all, it's a huge win for the consumer because it gives them a real understanding of why they need it. And you, I'm sure, as a contractor, have run into many situations where you have an adult son and daughter looking out for their elder parent, just like you did. The elder parent has a different idea of their mobility status than the son and daughter who are scared to death they're going to break their neck, right? And this comes in and is a clinical assessment that shows them exactly medically why they need it. And most people, when they're shown medically why they need something, it changes their outlook as to whether or not they're accepting to being able to change. And that's what I like about it on the consumer side. What also happens is that this is a great tool for the medical community. They do not know where they're discharging people, what the environment is. And this gives them finally a window into that so that they can understand the risk. There's a lot of risk that healthcare providers have in providing services to folks, especially folks who have the mobility challenges. They have terminal medical conditions, and in doing so, it's in their best interest that the home environment is safe and that they have an understanding what their people are going home to. For people who don't know this, and you know this, I know, is that if somebody is discharged from a hospital and after a rehab stint and they come back within 30 days, the hospital has to treat them for free and has to pay a penalty for that. the home care company has their rates deducted. And so it's in their best interest to really help make that home care experience safe, and the person's medical needs and their home environment safety is taken care of. And this will give them some information that they can better mitigate that. So that's a cool win. Payers also want this, because if they can understand what the home environment is like, they understand their risks better. And what could happen from this is that we may find that they'll find it more viable to invest in people getting their homes in a safe environment, or there'll be a recommendation like, it doesn't make a lot of sense to invest in this home. You really should look at a different living environment. So that's what I think is so exciting about this particular product, is that it can connect the dots for everybody, and the consumer wins. This will take the home access industry to the next level, where people will realize there's a professional network of companies out there, just like you, Chris. There's so many people that I know that have been in the construction industry or other facets of life, and they have found this to be their purpose. All right. I get to do what I love, which is construction, or dealing with seniors, or whatever it is, or just dealing with folks who need help, because it's not all just seniors. There can be a mobility challenged family member. I know you've done a lot of work for children with disabilities, and then people find their purpose in doing this. And when you do that, you know as well as I do that your passion for doing it well and doing a great job for people and helping people really shines. And that's where, if you look at the world as a whole, we tend to have a lot of our decisions in this country based on how much money we make on each thing that we do. And in some instances, if you take care of people in the right way first, you can have a viable business doing this. But if it's only on how much money you're going to make on each client, it's probably not going to be a service that is valued by anybody. And you know as well as I know too, and then I'll let you talk for a minute, is that when you do a good job and you serve people in the right way, the customer touch and the relationship you get with that customer goes well beyond most business transactions. You are hitting people at a point in their life where they really need your help. And when you come in and help them be able to stay in the home that they really want to stay in, it is a impactful, meaningful service.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you go into somebody's house and you put a curbless shower in for them, and they haven't been able to take a shower in 2 years because they couldn't get in the tub, and now they can get it. I mean, something as basic as that we just take for granted. I mean, being able to take a shower, being able to get out of bed by yourself, being able to get from the car to the house by yourself. I mean, being independent and being self-determination is a very basic human need. And, it's hard for us who are able-bodied to really wrap our minds around what it might feel like to suddenly depend on somebody else for all of our needs, to be able to take a bite of food, or to be able to, take care of our hygiene needs, or, get out of bed. And, it happens to people every day. Like you said, at all ages, people get in car accidents, people are born with conditions that, cause them to have challenges. But yeah, the impact that we make on people's lives is just far and beyond, when I was building big mansions with movie theaters in the basement, because, it just on the level that it affects people. And we really do. We have relationships with our clients. And, the flip side of that is that, we lose clients. I went to a funeral last week for a veteran that we did a bathroom remodel for, and, he was never able to use it or even see it. He went in the hospital. He had a leg condition. He went in for an operation, and it turned into an amputation, which turned into an infection. And he never made it home. And man, that's heartbreaking. But for every one of those, there's dozens that we've changed the quality of their life. We've changed the trajectory of their life and their caregiver's life and their family's life, because we've been able to create a home environment where they feel safe. Their family members feel more peace of mind knowing that they're in an environment where there's less hazards, there's less fall risk, there's less less chance that, that they're going to be hurt and have a traumatic event that changes their life.
We all get to do meaningful in whatever our role is in this industry, and it's really cool. Anyway, we're excited about DwellSafe. When you look at DwellSafe, also, it has other ways that people are looking at it. There are things like the Medicare, CMS, has a new initiative this year for both Alzheimer's. They look into making the home a better place for Alzheimer's for a certain point. There's a certain point where home won't work at all, but they want people to stay in the home longer and are working to build a design and home modifications that will help with that. And then the other aspect that they're interested in looking at is doing some work on certain surgical procedures before the surgery, because though there are a lot of procedures that people come home very mobility challenged, it may be temporary, but there's a lot of falls and injuries that happen due to the fact that the home isn't accessible. They want to look at mitigating that risk. So that's cool. The other thing that's happening is that we're seeing fire departments and EMS people interested in educating the frequent fall people, because they're the ones who get called when somebody falls in the home, mostly seniors, and they have to go, and there's some people that they have to go twice a month. And if they can educate them on their risks and their options to mitigate those risks, which this platform would do, it's also going to be a big value to them. So there's a lot of, that's what I love about this platform, is it can touch so many aspects. They're really not calling it this isn't designed really for the home access industry. It's a transformation from hospital to home software platform.
Yeah. Well, anytime you can have a preventative approach rather than coming in after the fact. I mean, a lot of times after somebody falls, your options are very limited. You have an older person falls and breaks a hip, and, a lot of times that's the beginning of the end. I know when my mom was living, she had a propensity to fall, and she would fall, she'd go to the hospital, she'd come out of the hospital, go to rehab. She'd be in rehab for a while. Then she'd go home. She'd have therapy at home. And just about the point where she was starting to get, her strength back and her balance and starting to feel a little bit of confidence about walking. And then Medicare would say, oh, you've stopped improving. You don't get any more therapy. And so the therapy would stop, and she would sit in her recliner, and within a short period of time, all the gains she had made would start to fade away, and she fell again and started the process all over again. And just seems crazy to me that they don't have a maintenance level of therapy. It would seem to make so much sense to, okay, we've gotten a lot of improvement on this person, on their balance, on their strength. And, we'll do a maintenance level, and we won't come twice a week. Maybe we'll come once a week or once every other week, but we'll maintain that improvement rather than just say, oh, see you next time. And some of the decision making in the insurance industry and the medical industry, and, and like you were talking about that readmission policy that they have if somebody is readmitted, and what the penalty is. And you would think that they would be just all about making sure that they reduce those readmissions, and that would be a top priority, I would think. If I were a hospital administrator and I knew there was that kind of a penalty for people coming back, I'd be looking for innovative ways to mitigate that risk.
We have a health system that they're big, and they have what's called an incubator location, and they are going to use the DwellSafe platform in this incubator right now they cover about 200,000 lives, and it's probably kind of bleeds into 3 different states. And what we're thinking is going to happen with this particular situation is going to be a year, and they're going to look at the vulnerable clients that they're working with. It doesn't have to be in a rehab. It could be somebody who's just got a diagnosis of frequent falls or something along that line. And they're going to do probably about 2,000 scans in the first calendar year, over 200,000 lives. And just the education and giving the people the options on what they can do to mitigate that risk, I think will be a very interesting case for both DwellSafe and the health system to learn. That they've already decided that this is something that they're going to do. And the other thing that, health systems, that people talk about how much healthcare costs, and it does. I did research on the United States health systems, or the healthcare in the United States, and this was 3 years ago. We were rated 69th in the world in the quality of our healthcare. That's the United States of America. We should never be that low. We were number one in something, though. We were number one in cost.
Mm-hmm.
So really, we've got a system set up to be really, it's for profit. And listen, I know this is when you look at the free market and all this stuff. I think it belongs to a lot of industry. That's the way to go. But when you're talking about healthcare, we need to do the services in a way that benefits, that's in the best outcome for the clients, not for the pocketbook. And I'm not saying that happens all the time, because I know there's medical professionals who have to work in that atmosphere and they mitigate it as well as possible. But it's fee for service, and that you make more money by doing more tests, prescribing more medications, all these things. And maybe sometimes we can do things that are, a little less costly and a little bit more preventative, and we'd go a long way. That's where value-based care is now becoming a term used in healthcare. And really, it's allowing payers to investigate investments in other services that will save the overall healthcare system money. And we're just looking for our turn at bat, this industry, because we all believe that if it was so much money spent on falls, it's over $500 billion a year, that you need, if we could just take 20% of that away by doing some real, not even extensive work in people's homes, and then we've turned a big corner here. And that's what I think DwellSafe will do. It's also going to be a data collecting system that will show, by doing it this way, here's the outcomes that we have. And I think that's also something that you have to have in the United States in order to be able to get somewhere with a change. Because changing a healthcare system and the way that people do their business in that market is something that you can't just go to the C-suite and say, hey, let's do this and make it work. To make it go all the way down to the feet on the street, it takes a lot. So there's really got to be a lot of conviction that it is the thing to do. So we're hoping that something like DwellSafe and maybe probably others come along that do the same thing. It'll really take this and really focus on the home. The other thing about home care is that it cost $1.5 million to build a new hospital room or healthcare setting. And that's just not feasible today anymore, to spend that kind of money. So we don't have enough beds, enough places to treat people. It's got to be done at home. We have no other choice. And that's the other thing that makes what we're doing so important. It isn't that you're just helping people. We're helping our country, because we have a crisis coming with your generation and mine, at least I think it's yours, I know it's mine, that is going to need health care that the country isn't really set up to provide. So it's going to be in housing, safe housing, and we really need to look at all outlets available to us and using the existing inventory of housing, but just modifying it so it's safer is definitely one of the best options that we have.
If anybody that's watching this is interested in learning more about DwellSafe and what it is and how they can plug into it, and where can they get more information?
Well, the website is dwellsafe.ai, and so that's one place you can go. And if anybody wants to learn more and speak with me, they're certainly welcome to do so. My email address is Greatorex, which you can see my name at the bottom here, at DwellSafe.ai. So it's a pretty simple way to get a hold of us, and we're happy to talk more about it, whether no matter what your profession is, if you're a consumer or a health professional or a home access company, we're happy to talk to you about how DwellSafe can maybe work in your professional setting or your home.
Great. Well, Jim, it's always a pleasure. I will put the website and the email in the notes here on YouTube so people can see that if they didn't pick it up during the video. And I appreciate all of you watching. Aging in Place is a team sport, and continue to tune in. We will have more providers that are on the team and who are revolutionizing the ability of people of all ages and abilities to stay in the homes that they love. So thanks again for watching, and have a great day.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks.